Welcome back to Practical Parenting, the podcast that helps empower parents in the trenches, find joy in the process, and thrive through it all. I'm Christina Wales, here with my co-host, Dr. Tara Nguyen, Chair of Pediatrics at GBMC Healthcare. So a couple of months ago, we dove into drugs and substance use, and we got clear on specific drugs and then gave advice on how to talk to your kids about drugs. So today we're going to talk about some other, it's another tough, challenging topic conversation, ones that I think parents are a little bit nervous and apprehensive to have. So we're going to dig a little bit deeper on another touchy, no pun intended, topic. Parents can get hesitant to broach with their teens and tweens, and that's sex. So I guess, talking about sex in a more general fashion, how early should we start having the conversation with them about these types of things? So
you should start talking about sex and just body parts in general. Mm-hmm. After, as your children are learning how to identify, name the body parts, make it really normal. Normalize that. Your penis, your vagina, your butthole, name them appropriately. Okay, so this is like preschool, right? And, if you make a big deal out of it, your kid's going to make a big deal out of it.
Yeah.
And if you kind of make it like, it's normal and it might even be funny, then that's how they experience it. Yeah. But if it's like taboo, then you're going to be in trouble. And the reason to name sexual anatomical parts correctly is if there should ever be anything where your child was inappropriately touched, you want to be able to, they need to be able to tell you what body part that actually was, right? So that's probably going to start at 3 or 4. So naming body parts anatomically. And then as the conversation goes on, none of these things are a one and done deal.
Yeah.
I think parents sometimes should I be talking about sex now? They're 9, they're 10, they're 11.
Just sit them down and have the talk.
The talk.
Yeah.
And wait. It takes 5 times to hear something before someone will digest it. And same thing with kids. And, you got to gauge where you might have an 8 or 9-year-old that's pretty mature, or you may have a 12, 13-year-old who still doesn't want to hear how babies are made. So your child best. And one of the best ways to bring it up is when they ask something about it, or you see something on media, or find the opportunity.
Right.
And when you do find the opportunity, so that's interesting. Why do you say that? What do you think about that? Or is there something specific you have a question about? So don't empty all of your knowledge out all at once. Gauge the situation, gauge what they know, and then, answer specifically, and it has to be age appropriate, right? We're not going to go through the whole thing at any stage. And besides, your kid is going to get bleary-eyed, and that's when the most effective talks last about 5 minutes. Okay, that's just a Dr. Terryism. It's not like a written down thing. If you can keep their attention for a short time span, so make the most of it. Don't feel that you have to get everything in all at once, and then you need to use protection, and then you No, just know that you're going to do it in small doses, and you're going to do it over time. And a lot of it is modeling also, right? You want to know that sex is also about love and intimacy. You might want to model that with, the other parenting partner. No, you should not make out in front of your kids. That's not what I'm saying. But, you're holding hands, you're talking affectionately to each other. I mean, that's the stuff that I'm talking about, right? Yeah. That there has to be a relationship. There has to be a friendship before there's sex, because the sex part is really an extension of that relationship. It's not just an act, right?
Right.
So that was a long answer to that short question.
No, that was good. And I feel like, I was thinking back to, I reached out to a friend of mine because I wasn't sure how to explain periods to my 7 and 5-year-old because they're curious about it and they don't want to get too into the weeds about it, like you're saying. So I was like, what's like an age-appropriate way to explain what's happening to me without completely freaking them out? And there was like some nice language that she gave me that I thought was really good. But yeah, just like you're saying, making it so that it's age-appropriate, just answer the question that's at hand. You don't have to expand further than that. And then over time, you're going to build on that. They'll have their base level understanding, and then you'll just sort of like keep going from there.
You'll evolve around it. And,
Right.
you know, one of the really helpful things is talking about puberty, okay? So there's a series that I really like, The Care and Keeping of You, okay? And the pictures are kind of cartoonish, so it's very appropriate for school-age kids, okay? The Care and Keeping of You, and there's like the first series, which is elementary school, very basic body parts, okay? And then the care and taking of you, like kind of part 2, is when you're about to enter puberty. So very age-appropriate reading. Sometimes I even think, you know, pass these readings on along to your kids, have them read about it, and then figure out what makes them curious about it, what they have questions from, okay? And then they can ask you, and then you can parse out how you want to approach it, right? It's like giving somebody a little background and then going, oh, so what of all of this is interesting or do you have questions from?
Yeah.
And I think the puberty talk should start earlier rather than later. And I'm going to share this with people. This is why it's such a mission for me, because I got my period when I was 11. I'm not sure that my mother had talked to me about puberty or getting your period before I got it. It was really scary.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay. And if you're now, so when does puberty start? Puberty starts, it can start anywhere as anytime after 8. Yeah, for girls, and anytime after 10 for boys. That's pretty early. That's definitely elementary school age, right? 8 years old, you can be 2nd or 3rd grade. Okay.
Yeah.
And 10 years old, you might be 4th or 5th grade. So you don't have to plunge all into it at once, but, you know, there's changes that happen, you know, and you might take the opportunity if your kid starts smelling kind of, hey, I'm just noticing you have some interesting smells. Have you noticed it? Okay. You might start from there.
Yeah.
One of my conversations started because I had a pack of girls post-soccer. They were probably like 9 or 10, and it was, the smell was not good in our car. And I think puberty's starting back there, ladies, you know. And so that's, you know, take that opportunity.
Yeah.
And you know, explain it very matter-of-factly.
Yeah.
So our bodies change. You know, girls, you have that outward, you have breast development. It's the first outward sign of puberty. So breast buds is the first thing. So whereas in the past it was just a flat chest with a little nipple there, now there's going to be a little tissue underneath it. So that's a breast bud. And that's usually your first outward sign that puberty has started. And anything after 8 is normal nowadays, okay? So do not worry. And it's about 2 years after you start seeing breast buds that you're going to experience menstruation, okay? And you may or may not have pubic hair down there, you know, but then the period, you know, you can explain about periods and how they happen monthly, but also be aware that you may start it and then you may not get a period for many months. It may take 6 months to 2 years before your periods are regular, okay? And 2 or 3 years after you get your period, your bones fuse and you will stop growing in height. So it is actually better if you go into puberty or get your period a little bit later. Okay. Now, when is it too late? Okay. So, you know, if by 15 you haven't had your period, your pediatrician needs to be checking and seeing if there's hormonal issues, if there might be a tumor in your pineal gland, okay? But go to your pediatrician, all right? Okay. And then the other thing so for boys though, all right, so they are 1 or 2 years behind their girl counterparts. So anything after 9 for boys is okay. I know, I cringe when I think of it, right? Because they're socially a little behind their
Yeah.
chronologic age girls. But so how do boys experience it? They have growth in their penis and their testicles, okay? And if you have an old-fashioned pediatrician, they may have this orchidometer. I have one handed down to me by my senior partner who retired. And it has all the possible different sizes of the testicles, and that will help you stage where your child is in
Interesting.
puberty, okay? And Tanner staging is what it's called, and we have that for breasts, pubic hair, and testicles. And stage 1 is nothing, okay? Like that's just a regular old, child that has not entered puberty. Stage 2 for any of these would be there's some breast buds, there's some hair down there, the testicles have become enlarged, the penis is also getting bigger, okay? All things that that's why your pediatrician keeps looking at your kids' privates. And I always remind kids, hey, I'm going to look at your private parts. I'm going to look at your girl parts. I'm going to look at your vagina. I'm going to look at your boy's parts. I'm going to look at your penis. I'm going to look at your testicles. And I explain what they are. And the reason I'm doing it is, I want to make sure they're where they should be based on your age. Okay. Some of the really little kids, I said, well, you're a girl. I want to make sure you have girl parts. Or you're a boy, I want to make sure you have boy parts. But that's it. But I also use that to interject. Even though I'm your doctor, I will only look if your parents are in the room or
Yeah.
your grandparents are in the room. Even though I'm your doctor, I would never look without having another adult from your family in the room. Okay?
Yeah.
So that is right there informing them that this is their private body parts. And, it's limited viewership for
Right.
anyone beyond their parents.
Our pediatrician who was at your office says that every time. I'm going to look. It's okay because I'm a doctor and your mommy's in the room or
right.
whatever.
Yeah. So exactly. That's how we approach that.
You know what I also love that I think is helpful probably to parents as their kids enter puberty is movies like Inside Out 2.
Yeah.
I feel like my kids are still young, but, seeing the puberty button and it going off in the, inside the
Right.
mind of Riley, was a good introductory, at least, into
Yeah.
the conversation about what happens and how everything changes. And, they would ask questions like, well, why is it getting
Yeah.
bigger and everything's moving around and all that stuff? And then,
Yeah.
allows you to open up the conversation to talk more about it.
Absolutely. I think that is a great movie, actually. And that movie also parts into where I'm going next with it. It's the emotional, psychological, behavioral changes that happen. The kids, it's all is happening like at once, it seems. And it's true. So there's physical maturation. And then there is emotional, psychosocial maturation. This is why sometimes they're just out of their minds, okay? Sometimes they're clumsy because, things are physically growing faster than they can accommodate their growth in their body. And the same thing is going on in their brains, right? Their prefrontal cortex is starting to develop. Their brain is pruning out the most effective pathways. So there were all these connections, and now the pathways that you aren't going to serve you get pruned out. The ones that are more effective are going to be honed in. And then there's hormones. There's the estrogen and there's the testosterone coming in. It's estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone coming in all at once. This is why our kids act crazy sometimes right before as puberty is starting or in puberty. And the good news is most of it peaks after a year or two, okay? But there are outliers, some who it lasts for longer and for some who it lasts for shorter. But it's really important to point that out. And I share that with my family. So I'm like, sometimes you don't know why you just lost your stuff with your parents. That's because it's your hormones. Yeah, and they're like this. They go up and down throughout the day. And it's okay. Your parents understand that it's this fluctuation of your hormones. But, if you catch yourself that you just had some really out of the normal reaction for yourself with your parents on a topic. Maybe you go to your room, you chill out, and you come back later and you apologize. And that'll make it okay, you know?
Yeah.
So you say it for everyone, right? The child knows, the parents know, and it's normalized. Like, yeah, we expect this, but we know you'll come back to your senses. You know, you haven't lost your mind. That's really important because boys don't get periods, right? So girls have very tangible things. Like you can see their breast buds, right? They're going to have to start wearing a training bra. They're going to get their period, so you have to prep them for that. Boys, hopefully not too many people are looking at their testicles and their penis. So actually, even as a parent, you don't know what's going on. And that's important to go, oh, yeah, my son is 9, 10, 11. You know, they're right in that. Why is he acting so weird? You know, why was he like a really outgoing kid and sharing everything with me? And now we're mute, not sharing anything with you. And like, don't watch me in the bathroom, right? It's because they're becoming more aware and conscious of it. And the more that we can talk about it as part of like the routine, you know, oh, yeah, you're going to get underarm hair. Oh, yeah, you're going to get pubic hair. Oh, yeah, your mood's going to be off. Oh, you might get wet dreams, you know, and that's okay. That's really important for boys going through puberty because they have no idea why they're having wet dreams. And they might worry then, right? Oh, my God, I'm bedwetting, you know.
Oh, yeah.
What's that all about? Is there something wrong with me? No. If you tell them ahead of time, and I tell boys this with their parents in the room that this may happen in puberty, it's cool, happens to people. Some people it doesn't happen to, and some people it does. No big deal. You are not regressing. You are not turning into a toddler who's wetting his bed again, right?
Yeah.
And tell them about these unpredictable erections that they may have, you know? Like, oh, that's really inconvenient. I'm in my shorts playing soccer.
Right.
And there's an erection. And say, it's okay. Chill out. And I'm going to take it to the next level. And my parents would not be happy my talking about, but they don't know about it. Masturbation. It's also normal. So masturbation and self-stimulation is pretty normal in kids at around 4 to 5 years of age. And all we said was, go to your room if that's what you'd like to do.
Yeah.
You know, it's not something we do in public. But you're not shaming them. You're not making a taboo about it.
Yeah.
Same thing when they reach adolescence and there's masturbation. Do it in private. Do it in your room. Do it in the bathroom, okay? It's not appropriate in public.
Yeah.
Okay?
It's actually against the law, but yeah.
So, again, kind of you're not making a big deal.
Right,
You're
right.
acknowledging it may happen and that's okay. May feel good. And
honestly, it's like, do they want to talk about that stuff with their parents? Probably not. But they subconsciously hear you say, it's okay, it's normal, you know, there's nothing wrong with you. Like it's just the validation that they need, that it's not just them.
Right. Don't feel shameful about it, right? I'm sure some of us here might have been chastised about anything like that when we were younger,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And then that's how you can then you can go on to the relationships. You know, your relationships are changing as you're in puberty. You're trying to get closer relationships with people who aren't in your family. So first it's same-sex friends, and then it may be opposite-sex friends or same-sex friends in a romantic way, though, right? And then that's how you go into the sex talk, is that, you know, it's normal to be attracted to other people. It's normal to like them, and maybe your heart flutters, or you get your sweaty hands, or, you know, you're like, I don't know what to say. That's normal, okay? And
it's not this talk versus this talk. They're all sort of
right.
Everything's happening at one time.
Yeah, and you know, just kind of let it arise organically and let it grow organically, okay? And there are kids who are having crushes on people in 4th and 5th grade. And then there are others who, you know, in 9th grade, they're still like, what? Yeah, my friends are talking to boys or girls. But I have no interest, you know?
Which is also normal.
Yep, exactly. So the spectrum is really wide. So there's not going to be a one formula, but I hope what people are hearing is that you're going to do snippets of it starting as early as 3 or 4 very age appropriate and appropriate to where your child is, right? And you take opportunities, and you may, you take opportunities as they come.
Yeah.
There's no planned, I'm going to go down and sit down and talk with you about X, Y, or Z, right? And then when it comes to the actual talk of sex, it should probably be out of, an agreement between both parties, okay? And it should be something that's significant for both of you. And, there should be feelings behind it. And then that's where you add in the personal boundaries, right? And respect for the partner, right? And I counsel teenage boys and girls similarly. I always say, if you weren't thinking of having sex that night at the beginning of the party before you went to the party and got drunk or got high, if you say yes later on that night, I think you actually are still saying, your brain was at a no in the beginning. Now that you're saying a yes, this is because your brain is under the influence. I'm not sure that it is a conscious yes for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I say the same to, and if a person that you're with at the beginning of the night said no about it, and now they're drunk or they're high and they say yes, I say to that young adult, I'm like, that answer is still a no.
Yeah.
Okay.
Take it as a no.
Take it as a no, even though they're saying yes. At the beginning of the night when they were fully cognizant in their own conscious state, the answer was a no, and now suddenly a yes. Please take that as a no, because you don't want to get in the quagmire of did you force sex on somebody or not.
Well, and if you think about it from the perspective of like, if they said no and you didn't do it, like no issue. If they said, you know what I mean? Like what's the least risk in here? So if they say no, if they say yes and then you don't do it, there's no risk there. Like you've just eliminated the problem for yourself rather than just waffling and trying to decide, do they really mean it or not? And then you're not sure and you go through with that anyway. Then you may have a problem, you may not have a problem, but just eliminate that problem for yourself to begin with and then wait till you're both in the right mindset to have the conversation.
Yeah.
But
easier said than done.
Oh, sure,
right?
sure. Especially when you're
both parties are probably
15
drunk
or 16.
or high.
Yeah.
Both parties are probably drunk or high. But the fact that you're even talking about it with your young adults, at least they've heard it, right? And then sometimes what we hope is that if they hear it often enough, there's some subconscious part of them that catches them in the heat of that moment that goes, oh yeah, I think mom said or my doctor said something like that. And that's the catch moment that I'm hoping that they have. Okay?
Well, and getting back to talking about it so early, like if you're continuing to have these conversations when they're 4 or 5 about bodily autonomy and who's allowed to, and what's appropriate behavior and what's not and things like that, like that reinforces it over time. So when they get to the point where they're 15 or 16, it's in the back of their mind, as a subconscious thought, whether or not it's coming out.
So I want to share something that will make parents delighted. Okay. In the 90s, about 67% of teenagers and young adults had sex by the time they graduated from high school, 67%. It is down below 50% now.
Wow.
Yeah. So I don't know the explanation for it. It's in the 40s. I don't have an explanation for it, and I don't think the social scientists have an explanation either. But if you come from a generation where you remember high school, everybody was hot and heavy and really excited about having a lot of sex, the kids nowadays are more informed, okay, because we are talking about it, and they're not necessarily as wanting. There's still going to be a subpopulation where that's what they're looking for, right? But it's a big jump from prior. It's almost a 20% drop, okay? And I could say
now when we're defining, when you say that statistic, are you talking about just sexual intercourse or all?
I'm talking sexual intercourse.
Okay.
I don't know that I'm sexual intercourse, so I'm supposing that meant all forms of sex, okay? Oral sex, vaginal sex, anal sex. But the key here is I think that there has been benefit to parents being more openly talking about it with their young adults earlier on, and this is what we're seeing. Because the teenage pregnancy rate has also gone down over the decades as well.
I can tell you, if MTV 16 and Pregnant did not deter anyone from doing it, I don't know. Nothing was going to work.
Yeah. So I'm going to be an optimist and say all this talking and normalization of it has, at least, prevented unplanned pregnancies or decreased unplanned pregnancies. And perhaps it's made young adults at least just think about it more than just an act.
Yeah.
And they're horny and, this is all you want to do. There's more to it than just the sexual act, right?
Well, because I think it's flipped a lot. From my generation, it was a lot about very much like like we said, the talk. It was very much centered on the act itself. All of it. Don't do it because of you could get pregnant, because you could get a disease. You could, it was like all the bad things about it, and then it was just like don't do it, and that was the end of the conversation. Whereas I feel like now it's more nuanced and I think where it should be, and correct me if I'm wrong, more on the relationship part of it.
Yeah.
So, it's not so much don't do it, but, don't do it with the wrong person who doesn't treat you incorrectly. How should you deserve to be treated? Who, all the things about relationships and the social interactions, which, it's a more difficult and more nuanced conversation than just here is how it actually works logistically.
Right.
And that can be tough, but I think it's more beneficial to focus on that.
Yeah.
And then have, that just be sort of like an addendum to the conversation almost.
Absolutely. But the not as optimistic part of me may say that some of that decrease in sexual activity may be because our young adults are not as socialized, like one-on-one socialization. There's so much going on through texting and social media that they're not seeing people and learning how to socialize and talk with people one-on-one as much. So you can't go from not talking to someone and having a very intimate relationship with them for the most part.
Yeah.
I know there's outliers, right? So that for me is a question in my mind. And also we have higher rates of depression and anxiety in our kids now.
Mm-hmm.
If that's going on in your head, I think it's also harder to be in an intimate relationship as well. So a side effect of many of the antidepressants is decreased sex drive. So maybe as a parent, I'm going to be happy about that. And then maybe on the other side, I'm like, oh my gosh, another consequence of mental health for our young adults. So it's just, I'm laying it out there for you, right? Yeah. It is really important though, but also just to talk the, sensible part about it, okay? And use the do's. Do this. Do use a condom. Do use a barrier method, okay? Use a mouth guard. Use a vaginal shield, okay? So it's about the do's. We were raised on the don'ts. Don't have sex. Don't do this. Don't do that. I'd rather us have the conversation. These are the things that you can do to respect your partner and yourself. And these are the things that you can do to protect yourself from sexually transmitted diseases and unplanned pregnancy. It's the same concept, but it's how you deliver it, right? Because when our kids just hear from us, don't do this, no that. It's like they block out that word, that negative word in the beginning. This goes back to toddlerhood too.
Yeah.
If you say don't touch that, no,
they hear touch that.
They hear touch that. So they're hearing have sex. Right?
Think about it that way. Yeah.
Yeah. So
and understanding too, like I know I knew nothing about how my menstrual cycle worked when I was younger. Like I'm in my 30s and I'm just learning some of the things that I thought, and it could make you feel really stupid, but no one taught me any of that. I've had to learn everything, that and some people, I follow a woman who specializes in this kind of thing, like tracking your own cycle and things like that. And she will still get comments from people who will say, you can get pregnant any time of your cycle. And she's like, no. And then she has to explain it, and just like, you don't have to have a certification in, cycle tracking. But I think these are just regular things that we should be making sure that we teach our kids about just how it actually works and how to keep yourself safe and whatnot. So,
and I think one of the key things for parents is to remind them you have all this knowledge so that you can be in control of your own body and what you do to it or what other people do to it, right? There's nothing that kids and young adults want more than a sense of control of themselves, okay? So if we can word it in that vein that, we want you to be in control of this, that when it's the right person, when it's the right scenario for you, there's enjoyment and pleasure in it, and there's joy in it, and there's a relationship in it. It's not just an act. It's not just to check off how many partners you've had, right? So I think those are the key things is to start early, talk about it often when it's appropriate, and to normalize it, and the do's rather than the don'ts.
Yeah.
And here's something that you get to do as the parent where I may not do as the pediatrician is that you can also instill your family values in this, okay? And if your religion, your religious beliefs are, you really do think that sex is for after you're married, you can share that. It doesn't mean that your child is going to do that and stay with it, but it's okay to share what your values are.
And why,
and what your beliefs are, okay? Just so that your young adult can hear it, okay? They may not agree, and I don't want you to come out judgy, okay? Like you must do this, but this is what I believe, why I believe it. It may be a little old-fashioned, but I just want you to know all the information and then make a good decision for yourself and know that I'm going to love you and respect your decision no matter what. And you've also got to put it in there. Okay, so we've had the difficult conversations before. You know that. And the reason we have these conversations is I want to help keep you safe and help keep you healthy, right? And if things happen and you make a mistake, I'll be there for you. Maybe it's not something that you or I anticipated happening, and it's not necessarily something that we're really excited about, but I'm going to help you work through it.
Yeah.
You need to instill that message in your children, okay? I know I do it for my own 2 college-age kids. I'm like, where I stand on things, right, guys? But at the end of the day, if you're in trouble, you're in a hot mess, I actually want you to think, I can call my mom. She's got my back on this. And not what I had when I was growing up was, oh my God, I'd rather the police take me off to jail for a night than to have to call my parents and let them know that this happened, okay? So that is really critical.
My dad was the police, so that would have been the double whammy.
Well, my dad was an attorney, and how's that for you?
Yeah, we're the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that's really the key.
Yeah, definitely.
Remember, you want to always be able to be the person that they call, or one of the top 3 people that they call, okay? And not to be fearful of having to call you.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, hopefully we have packed everybody with some good information to have these conversations no matter what age level you're at. And if you have any other questions or things you want to know about how to approach, feel free to let us know in the comments or on social media.
Great. Thanks.
All right. See you in the next one.
Bye.